Excellencies, friends, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon and thank you for joining us at this event entitled Empowering a Climate Resilient Africa for the 21st Century, hosted by His Excellency President Masisi of Botswana, and which brings together world leaders, industry champions, heads of top UN agencies, and our civil society partners. My name is Shireen Zorba. I head the Global Secretariat of the United Nations Science Policy Business Forum, and we are proud to be organizing this event. I'm also honored to be your moderator this afternoon. With this event, we mark the start of the African Pavilion activities at COP27. I would like to thank the African Development Bank, the African Union Commission and partners for building a space that is committed to honest and inclusive dialogue and that aims to spark action and partnership for Africa and for the world. Please allow me to welcome our distinguished panel. Sure. Your Excellency. Well, please allow me to welcome our distinguished panel. His Excellency President Masisi of Botswana and our host, His Excellency Emmerson Mnangagwa, President of Zimbabwe, His Excellency Alar Karis, President of Estonia, Inga Anderson, Executive Director of UNEP, and we are also very pleased to welcome friends and partners from technology, private sector and finance sectors. Nicholas Gustafsson, his Vice President and Head of Public Policy and Regulatory Affairs, Volvo Group. Sherry Hinish, Head of Sustainability Services, IBM. Kate Brandt, Chief Sustainability Officer, Google. Mohammed Saad, Regional Leader, North and East Africa. Sebastian Rees, Cluster President for North and East Africa and Levant. Anthony Leah, President, International Copper Association. Eric Usher, Head of UNEP FI, Finance Initiative. And representing Africa and international civil society organizations, we are really pleased to welcome Jatobe Aziaka. She's the co-facilitator of major groups and stakeholders at UNEP. Miroslav Polzer, founder and CEO and executive director of GLOCHA, and Chi Batista, member of the indigenous Otomi Toltec Nation from Mexico. Ladies and gentlemen, despite rising global challenges, countries in Africa are making headway in designing ambitious initiatives to overcome and mitigate the worst impacts of climate change. I would like to name a few: the Egypt-led Decent Life for Climate Resilience in Africa and Greening National Investment Plans, the Africa Adaptation Initiative, Botswana's own Innovation and Technology Hub, the Big Data for the Environment Initiative Deal, the Africa edition, in partnership with the government of Estonia and the UN Environment Programme, and the Great Green Wall Initiative. This is to name just a few. To succeed, this work will require robust leadership and a new brand of intercontinental alignment and cooperation. It also requires a new brand of international cooperation that delivers on national and regional priorities in terms of policy, trade, technology, empowerment, investment, and financing in a manner that recognizes the specific needs and paths championed by African states. This event hopes to reshape the conversation about climate diplomacy and empowerment in relation to Africa and the developing world, reaffirm a renewed commitment towards Africa's vision and leadership vis-à-vis adaptation and building resilience, and position Africa as a hub for innovation. It is my pleasure to invite our host, His Excellency President Masisi, to open the session. Your Excellency.
Thank you very much. Your Excellencies, heads of state and government, business executives here present, representatives of international organizations, distinguished participants. Africa is one of the regions mostly impacted the worst by effects of climate change due to low levels of adaptive capacity, inadequate diffusion of climate technologies, and limited data and information relevant to support adaptation. The region's dependence on agroecosystems for livelihoods also makes Africa to be vulnerable to climate change. The situation is compounded by limitations in reliable and accessible climate data and information to support adaptation actions. We're all aware of the need to build Africa resilience to the impacts of climate change while helping to mitigate the level of those impacts. We have an equally great, if not greater, desire to foster equitable economic growth within our diverse countries to improve the well-being and prosperity of our peoples. These issues go hand in hand. Reducing greenhouse gas emissions lowers the severity of climate change impacts. Better resilience to those impacts means less adverse economic consequences and a lower human cost, which is a good in itself. People whose homes, businesses, health, and education are less impacted are more able to contribute economically to their nations. And in return, nations with stronger economies are more able to build resilience and mitigate emissions. Unfortunately, the same positive cycle is not common to the developing world. The earliest steps on this path of sustainable development are the most difficult. With many of the least developed countries in the world being in Africa, there's a scarcity of capital to invest in becoming more resilient and sustainable. But it's clear that Africa needs to be central to global efforts to mitigate climate change and to build resilience against its adverse impacts. I believe there are four main reasons for this. The first is the extent to which Africa will lock in long-term greenhouse gas emissions as it grows. Africa's population is rising faster than most of the rest of the world, and there are many service gaps to fill to raise standards of living. Hundreds of millions of Africans are without electricity. As Africa develops and a larger population is provided with more services, there will be a spectrum of options on how cleanly African nations can build infrastructure and deploy services. The second is opportunity. With positive development, prospects, and growth, Africa will have many opportunities for returns on investment for those who help realize our potential. We are a smaller market now in many respects, but that will change radically over the coming few decades. For this reason, international collaboration is vitally important. The third reason is workforce. Because Africa has a big share of the people coming into the working age range, it follows that Africa will be doing a lot of the work of creating a more sustainable world. More and more Africans will be innovators, will be software developers, researchers, engineers, economists, financiers, policymakers, and administrators. The fourth main reason is that Africa has such tremendous biodiversity to protect. So our continent is investor ready with prioritized infrastructure projects to cope with expected extremes and adverse events. Of course, each African country has its own priorities, its own strengths, and envisaged paths. And it's wonderful to have distinguished representatives from several African nations here to help articulate our different needs. For my country, Botswana, these cover rail and road transportation infrastructure projects, early warning systems, communication systems, smart grids, water and sewer networks, ICT infrastructure, as well as agriculture infrastructure projects, including smart technologies and systems to accommodate storage of produce, marketing, and value chain development. Added to these challenges and opportunities are the associated impacts on human and animal health as climate change continues to increase the incidence of spread of infectious agents and disease vectors. On the non-physical side, we will do the needful to develop our economies with the appropriate policy responses, strategies, and governmental action. Significant efforts have been made by most African governments in terms of adaptation to the impacts of climate change. Regionally, development and adaptation of several climate change adaptation strategies have ensued. These include the African Union Climate Change and Resilient Development Strategy and Action Plan for 2022 to 2032. Returning to the issue of collaboration, I have noticed the presence in this room of heads of industry who are with us today to share in our discussion. African countries, Botswana included, are ready to collaborate. We are willing to co-invest. We have workforces that are becoming more skilled every year and readier and hungrier by the minute. And we have ecosystems that are perfect for further developing sustainable technologies, while our resources provide the building blocks for the clean, revolutionized, and technology-driven solutions. Let us embrace the opportunities together. Indeed, when we start this journey together, we will travel far together. You're welcome.
President Masisi, thank you very much indeed for hosting this. We are going to start our dialogue now. We are going to have approximately 90 minutes. We will try to keep to time. This is an open dialogue, so you are very much welcome, our speakers and our audience, to interact with our speakers. I will start, and I'll do my best to moderate a fair and open discussion, which is the spirit of this pavilion. I'm going to start this perhaps with a question to His Excellency President Mnangagwa of Zimbabwe. And I'm going to ask some of the team members to just provide a microphone, please. Your Excellency, in what ways do you feel we need to reshape the conversation about climate diplomacy and empowerment in relation to Africa? This is very much an Africa COP, and there is a sense that it's a great opportunity to empower through policy and through technology the African continent and African countries. Can you share with us a little bit of your vision on what you would like to achieve during this climate COP?
Thank you very much. My fellow panelists here, ladies and gentlemen, I think that as Zimbabwe, as well as I myself will speak about my region, the SADC region, we have become more and more aware of the need that as African leaders we address the question of climate change. Fortunately, we are fully aware that we are at the receiving end of this person. Our contribution to the problem and challenges of climate change are more foreign than their domestic class. However, we feel we have equal duty to the rest of the world to mitigate against the impact of climate change. As we come here at COP27, after last year's conference in Glasgow, many commitments were committed and made, but very little has been achieved. So it is necessary that we all commit ourselves to the promises which we make. Us in our region, despite the fact that our contribution to this challenge, to this problem is minimum, we need to do our best to meet what we committed ourselves. We have lots of forests, conservation of forests. Our contribution in terms of emissions is very low, but we have committed ourselves that we should give our goals to achieve. And I have no doubt that Zimbabwe, as well as my colleagues in the region, will commit to achieve the promises we have made. There's very little you can point to us and say we have failed to do the following. But there's a lot that we can point out and say other regions have failed to do what they have promised to do. Going forward, it is my view that we have, for us in the region, in Africa, most importantly, we need food security in our regions. But this has been affected by climate change because we now have droughts in our region, cyclones in our region. Things have changed. So it is necessary that we know what we must do to mitigate, like the construction of dams, so we preserve water and do irrigation in our region. But to do so, we also need support from the West or the developed countries to achieve those things. We need to promote science and technology in our universities in order for the next generation to be fully aware of the impact of climate change. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter who we are. The effect is across the planet for everybody. And it is personally my view that politics aside, let us all put our shoulders to the wheel and deal with this problem. Because if we bring in politics, our differences are so vast. Time is gone where we would say if one region has problems, the other regions can sleep. They should not lose sleep because a region has problems. I think now, wherever there is a problem, all of us, if we have to keep awake, we must all keep awake. If we have to sleep, we must all sleep and not interchange, because this affects us all. So in my view, I'm very grateful to my brother who has invited me here to share with all of you. I believe that the burden should not be that of political leaders. The burden should also be with the industry and commerce, captains of industry. also should come forward and contribute to the mitigation of the impact and challenges which we face. I thank you.
Thank you very much.